Hello.
And here I am again with my beautiful friend, Marina. And we have so much to talk about today as well. And
Where do we begin?
we began right at the beginning. So I was thinking maybe we can go back when we figure out how our children are different. So like the time that we figured out what it meant, and perhaps give some ideas to others about how to detect different things. Perhaps. So that's where hopefully we can get there. And thank you for being with us today and for joining us again. Thank you so much.
Why don't we start with your story with Malik, because it was very interesting with the age, the fact that he was well into the school system before it was even observed.
Right, exactly. Well, actually, it was before. I feel like I have to have a disclaimer actually about Mac. He's my son, and he's 23 right now. And I asked him about the podcast. It's okay, because he was like saying, "Oh, you're making a whole podcast about me and stuff like that." So I said, "Are you okay with all of it?" And he said, "Yeah." And I asked him, "Why are you okay with it?" And he said, "Because it could be therapeutical to you and Marina, and I am okay with that. And I want you guys to be, happy with that. And also it can help others." So I thought that was such a beautiful thing to say. And so I wanted to just share that. But, the beginning really, Malak was really doing very well, as you know, and he was considered gifted, honors and gifted child, basically. And he went from middle school or from elementary school where everybody knew him, loved him. He was, people just adored him because he was so sociable with everybody, right? And people used to call him Wikipedia or Animal Wikipedia because he knows so much about animals, all facts. And then when he went to middle school, in middle school, they wanted him to be considered as gifted. And we noticed that it was a little bit too much for him. And it wasn't because of the actual, the education, or he was acing everything. He was really good in all of that. But it started like not wanting to go to the school, not wanting to socialize with people. He started saying things like, "Oh, I am sick, I have a fever."
He was overwhelmed.
Overwhelmed. So we thought, that's what we thought, that he was overwhelmed. And we went to school and we said, we don't want him in this gifted children thing or in honors or anything. Just put him with others so he can. That was a struggle because they didn't want to change him actually. I don't know, I don't know what happens usually with funding and stuff like that. So it was a struggle to put him back. And once we put him back, he did not, a lot of these, the education was very, not low for him, but it was very easy for him, right? It was not challenging. So that was a difficulty as well. But he starts saying, this is all in middle school. He starts saying that he's sick, even though he's not sick. He would make himself feel sick, or he would pretend he had a fever.
So perhaps the sickness was not something he could describe. That was what he probably didn't recognize, is that he wasn't feeling sick. He was feeling anxiety. But a child that age cannot necessarily detect that this is anxiety.
That is so true. And at the beginning, he's actually Malak, the way he lived life, it was always explaining life. You know how when little kids, when they're 3 years old or from 1 to 3, they're like, "What's that? What's that?" all the time.
Right.
Malak never said, "What's that?" He would say, "Mama, this is this because it is this and that and that." And he would always explain things, and even with his illness, ultimately, because after we start thinking about, well, what's going on, we start seeing if he's being bullied, in school, what's going on with all of these things? Why is he refusing to go to school? And tell you the truth, I did not see the mental illness, the anxiety, or all that, because there were a lot of behaviors. But as his mother, I thought that it was mostly teenager things. He's going through teenager stuff or preteens, middle school. So therefore, that's what he's behaving in those ways, because that's how I had it with my older child to a large extent. So I did not know. And then he one day he put he started putting fire on the foot, underneath his foot, and then we talked about that and like what's going on here, right? And he's like, oh, I don't know. So eventually, the school did not pay attention to any of this, but out of all of us, he did research. And he said, Mama, I think what's going on here, I think I have a mental illness.
So I have a question for you. Where was the source of the research that he did? How did he access?
Well, I mean, it was just with Googling, actually. He was on Google. That's what he did. He started looking at the symptoms that he was having. And then he started seeing it. I'm talking about early stages, which we were lucky, discovering it together like that. And mostly him.
The fact that he found and discovered and identified the reason or his symptoms and what it means actually is a huge blessing in terms of him accepting it. Because it would be different if he didn't see it, but the world saw it, and he'd be like, no, that's not what's going on. But I want to ask you a question, because I remember when he was little, you told me that one of the teachers noticed and said, let's just get him tested, and then it was discovered that he was dyslexic.
Right, exactly.
And I think that was around first grade?
That was first or second grade. Yeah. So he actually went...
It was around 6, I remember.
It was around 6, 7, I think, because we were in Morocco from 5 to 6, and then there he started, teachers, when we had conferences with them, they said, parent, teacher conferences, they said things like, oh, he's reading backwards, or he does not recognize these words or the letters. But this kid, we would read with him, one of the little books, whatever, and the book would have 300 words or whatever, and you would read the whole book. It turned out that he was memorizing things, and he would read. Because of the dyslexia, he was not able to differentiate between the letters, but as we read with him, he memorized.
Challenges with the letters.
Right. No, it was letter P and Q.
Okay.
So he, and also the numbers 4, he would put it backward. So they were them, I have to admit, the public school, at least in our case, in New York, was so great with all of these issues of dyslexia. They actually helped him a lot. With dyslexia at the elementary school, and that was very, helpful to him later on with the reading and all of that. Because he's a scientist, so he loves to read and discover and all of that. So that was very helpful to him. But then later on, the diagnosis started happening and coming little by little. Now, obviously, he did not diagnose himself because he did not know what it was exactly. And we started at that moment going to doctors, and it was a long trajectory. And we'll have to talk about it on another episode for sure to get to the diagnosis that he came, or that they meaning psychiatrists and psychologists and all of them, that they decided it is his final diagnosis, which is actually a completion of five different things that he has, like anxiety, depression, schizoaffective,
Yeah.
ADHD.
So I have another question for you, because right now we're covering the beginnings of discovery. And you had mentioned the process started where you started taking him to doctors. For someone going through the same thing, a parent going through the same thing, where would you suggest they start?
I always think the school is good to start at the school if they are in the school, because some people don't have their kids in schools. They're like, homeschooling or things like that. Although schools are really difficult because they have so many kids, and paying attention to your own kid is a little bit difficult as well. So psychologists, I would say therapist is a really good place to start.
Okay, so like what kind of therapist would a parent, what would you advise a parent to see? Like there's so many therapists out there, so what?
So if it is kind of hard to see the diagnosis if you don't know what it is,
so are
right?
you saying first a psychiatrist, please?
Yeah, first
Psychologist?
a psychologist. I mean, different countries or different states would have different ways of dealing with these things. In New York, the way that we did it eventually is going to the hospital. You have to go to a hospital, and then that's where they figure out his diagnosis, as well as helping him with medication and finding the right psychiatrist and the right therapist for him. And then that was after that, it was a long process to keep up with different psychologists and also psychiatrists, because they just release
So
you.
I have
basically.
a question for you right there.
Mm-hmm.
What events led to taking him to the hospital? Because typically a parent going through this would not think, okay, the best place to start is the hospital. It just so happened that he was there, and then that's the experts all under one roof.
Right. Unfortunately, with something like this, from what I understand, following other parents, they have the hospitals get involved in because episodes happen, for different people who are living with some sort of mental illness. Not for everyone, but it's psychosis. Sometimes it happens, and that's where it ends up. People find out what's going on or actually try to get help, right?
Mm-hmm.
In our case, this whole idea, remember I said about the fire, so we would have a foot. I was cleaning his body, and I saw his foot, and I saw that it was black and underneath, just a part underneath his foot. And I said, "What's going on here?" And
What do you mean black? It was from...
Because from the candle, from the fire, so it just got, how he did not put the fire completely in there, but just the fume of it, darkened that part of his skin. And I think because he was struggling through the pain, of the different things that were going on in his mind. So that was his way of dealing with it. Just like sometimes people will cut themselves to deal with some of these pains, And then I started asking him what's going on, and and then that was when we started talking about, maybe I have mental illness, and that's when we started going to the doctors. And that was something that we went to the hospital, because I wanted to make sure that he is, since the beginning, going to be in the right hands, so people can help him, he had to spend 10 days in the hospital, actually.
I remember.
At age 13. It was a difficult task, it was very difficult emotionally and every other way that you can think about. Um, and the journey was really hard, and that's why I'm very grateful that we are here where we are. And one of these days, we'll interview our kids as well, and hopefully they'll be able to share their own story. But I think to get back to your question, if when you see something different, a behavior, don't just assume it is a behavior. Perhaps something else is going, if there is laziness, what we call laziness, perhaps it's depression that's going on. So maybe just like investigate it a little bit more than than judging.
So that brings me to the next question. You made a good point. When you see something, don't take it at face value. For instance, laziness could be depression.
Right.
Or something or the other. Yet we are all surrounded by family who will also give the advice. Oh, don't worry, you're thinking too much about it. It'll go away eventually. It's just a phase.
Exactly. Yeah.
So how do you identify that this is not something he's just going to grow out of?
This is a very difficult topic, I think, and it requires an entire episode for this topic.
That's a discussion.
It's a whole discussion on its own. But just in general, and I'm assuming something similar happens to you as well with perhaps. But in general, I had made it my mission in life to explain that this is what's going on and to be upfront with it. I always, whether I am in the classes or with friends, with family, I would say, if I'm talking about my son, I would say he lives with schizoaffective. Do you know what that is? That is my first question, because people would usually say, they won't ask. Because as soon as they know that it's something with the mental health, they back up. They don't ask.
They don't know what's.
They don't know what it is.
There's a fine line on what they perceive to be as politically correct.
Exactly, and also they would say things like, "Oh, I am sorry," which is another part of it, because this is his life. Don't be sorry about the way that he exists in this world.
The thing is, their intention is very, very pure when they say, "Oh, I'm sorry." So it's hard for people to ask.
Right, exactly, and that's the reason I am upfront with it. And I say, do you know what it is? If they don't, I'm like, oh, let me tell you. And my son lives with this, and this is how it is. And
so you constantly work on educating people.
It gets a little bit difficult sometimes. Yeah, I mean, it gets difficult to keep talking about it sometimes. But I think the more we know, the better we understand things. Yeah. So that is my philosophy. But maybe I'm wrong in this. I don't know. But I like to, expose this and raise awareness on it, and kind of, to me, normalizing it is very important as well. So that's, that's just like, I know it's that we just talked about 15 years in a few minutes here, but but that's how it started, and throughout these episodes, hopefully we'll talk about some other things like family, siblings, and also how it affects all of us, caregiving and things like that.
Navigating.
So I was hoping if you can share with me some of your stories as well before we adjourn.
So Dion was interesting because he hit all the normal milestones, except around the age of 2. And he was not speaking. He was just very, very hyper, very, very self-directed, Not like my other 2 typically developing children. And Dion was my 3rd of 3 boys. So when we, my husband and I, were raising Aman and Fateh, it was a completely different blueprint. So the beginning, it was a challenge for us as parents to realize that Diane's blueprint was different.
Right. Yeah.
And I remember a friend of mine, a dear friend of mine, Rupa Dayal, told me, you know, Diane is who he is. His path is just different. And that really resonated with me.
Right.
That, you know, no two human beings are alike. And everyone has their own individual path, even identical twins.
Exactly, yes.
You know? So I think as parents, it's very important for us to accept and be comfortable with the fact that, yeah, his path is different.
Right.
It's not wrong. It's just different. You know. So that was really insightful in terms of acceptance. You know.
But he said, so at 2 years old, like you start discovering something. But
Right.
what are some of the ways? Because 2 years old is very young.
Yeah.
What are some of the ways that you notice?
But you
that
see,
it's
the thing
really
is,
different?
I've had 2 kids before that.
Right.
So by the age of 2, they were calling me mommy.
Mm-hmm.
They were talking. They were listening to directions.
Right. Yes.
You know, and they understood consequences. Like, don't do that, or you know, like first then, right?
Mm-hmm.
First finish your food,
Mm-hmm.
then you could have ice cream. So those are things that were very easy with Aman and Fateh. But Diane did not respond to first then, you know?
Yeah. Right.
Because he didn't understand the concept. First of all, he didn't understand what we needed of him or was asking of him. And then he didn't understand the time concept, the sequence, right? The sequential.
Exactly. Succession of
Yeah, exactly. That
Mm-hmm.
when I finish this, then I'll get that,
Right.
you know?
Uh-huh.
So for him, I wanted, and this is exactly what you said, I wanted doesn't, like, him saying I wanted, and being self-directed, like you said, it was a sign that he couldn't explain something. So he would just keep saying, I wanted. And that goes back to what you were saying, that don't just take it at face value.
Mm-hmm.
There's something going on behind it. Like, he can say why he wants it, what he wants, but not why he wants.
Right.
You
Yes.
know?
I noticed that.
Yeah.
Too, yeah.
Well, when I say, I should make myself clear.
Mm-hmm.
Diane is non-verbal,
Mm-hmm.
but not non-communicative.
Exactly. Yes.
So there's, as a professor of communication, you know very well that there is verbal communication,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's physical,
Non-verbal.
you know, indicating, pointing, you know, so he was capable of doing that. But, you know, there's still a piece of the puzzle that was missing, and that's a very big puzzle. The fact that he could not use words.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like my kids, I could ask them, what do you want for lunch? I want to be like, pizza.
Yeah.
And the other would be like, no, chicken nuggets.
Yeah.
Now he, as a human being, has preferences, Dion,
Yes, yes.
but he's not
I
able
see it
to.
actually.
He's not able to say, "This is what I feel like happening," you know. So the process started where I felt that he needed to be evaluated,
Mm-hmm.
and we got him evaluated. And at that time, they did not diagnose him with autism. Um, they diagnosed him with PPD.
What's that? PPD?
It stands for what was it?
I have to Google it.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna. It's on the tip of my tongue. But the point is that at that point he was not diagnosed with autism.
Mm-hmm. Our next episodes will talk about different things such as stigma and other things that we went through our journey, as well as we are going to have some people who live with ADHD and different types of diagnosis or neurodiversity, so we can learn from adults as well as kids about these topics. So thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.